Hello everyone. Welcome to your own channel, The Lyceum. Today we are going to discuss about pragmatics. Understanding pragmatics in linguistics. The study of contextual meaning in communication. Pragmatics is a subfield of linguistics that examines how context affects the interpretation of meaning in communication. Unlike semantics, which focuses on the literal meaning of words and phrases, pragmatics considers how meaning is influenced by factors like the context of the conversation, the intentions of the speaker, and societal norms. It looks beyond what is explicitly stated to understand how people actually communicate in real-world situations, taking into account things like tone, implied meanings, and shared knowledge between the speaker and listener. Key concepts in pragmatics. 1. Context. The situational and cultural background influencing meaning in communication. 2. Speech acts. Actions like requesting or apologizing, performed through language, conveying intentions beyond literal words. 3. Implicature. Implied meaning that isn't directly stated but understood in context. 4. Deixis. Context-dependent words, e.g. this, here, whose meanings rely on the speaker's and listener's shared understanding. 5. Politeness and indirectness. Social strategies in communication to maintain respect and avoid offense, often by being indirect. 6. Relevance. Ensuring that communication is pertinent to the conversation, making it meaningful and connected to the topic. Context is essential in pragmatics for interpreting language. It encompasses the physical setting, such as location and time, social relationships between speakers, prior knowledge shared by participants, and cultural norm that guide behavior and communication. These elements collectively shape how messages are understood, influencing the meaning of words and actions within a conversation. Without context, the intended meaning of language could be misunderstood or lost, as it provides the necessary background to interpret communication accurately. Speech acts. Speech acts are actions carried out through speech. When someone says, "I apologize," they aren't just using words, they are performing the act of apologizing. Speech acts go beyond conveying information. They accomplish something in the interaction, such as making a promise, giving a command, or expressing gratitude. For instance, saying "I promise" is the act of making a promise. In pragmatics, understanding speech acts helps us see how language is used to do things, not just to state facts, and how these actions are interpreted based on context and intention. Implicature. Implicature refers to the implied meaning in an utterance that isn't directly stated. It's what the speaker suggests or hints at, beyond the literal words used. For example, when someone says, "It's cold in here," they might not just be stating a fact, but could be implying a request to close the window. The listener interprets this additional meaning based on context, shared knowledge, and the nature of the conversation. Implicature allows communication to be more efficient and nuanced, as much can be conveyed indirectly. Deixis. Deixis involves words like this, that, here, and there, whose meanings depend on the context in which they're used. These deictic expressions require the listener to consider the speakers and their own location or situation to interpret them correctly. For instance, this might refer to something near the speaker, while that refers to something farther away. The meaning shifts based on where the conversation takes place and the physical or situational context. Without understanding the context, the specific reference of these terms would be unclear. Politeness and indirectness. Politeness and indirectness in pragmatics refer to how speakers use language to show respect and maintain social harmony. Often, this involves using indirect language to soften requests or commands. For example, saying, "Could you pass the salt?" is more polite than directly saying, "Pass the salt," because it adds a level of courtesy by framing the request as a question rather than a command. Indirectness allows speakers to avoid sounding too forceful or rude, especially in social situations where maintaining positive relationships is important. Pragmatics examines how these strategies are used to navigate social interactions effectively. Relevance. Relevance theory, introduced by Dan Sperber and Deirdre Wilson, suggests that in communication, speakers aim to be relevant by providing just the right amount of information to make their message clear and meaningful. This means they avoid unnecessary details while ensuring that the listener has enough context to understand the intended meaning. The theory highlights that effective communication relies on the assumption that what is said will be relevant to the listener's needs and the conversation's context, making it easier to grasp the speaker's intent without extra effort. Examples of pragmatics in action. 1. Sarcasm. In sarcasm, the literal meaning of an utterance contrasts with the intended meaning. For example, saying, "Great job," after a mistake actually implies criticism, not praise. 2. Understanding requests, a question like, "Do you have the time?" is not just asking if someone possesses time, it typically implies a request for the current time. The listener interprets the true intent based on context. 3. Cultural differences. Pragmatics highlights how cultural context affects communication. For instance, in some cultures, yes might be used to acknowledge listening rather than to express agreement, showing that understanding context is crucial for accurate interpretation.